Good evening, everybody. Let's call this meeting to order of the City Council work session for May 7th. I'll let the record reflect that all members of the council are present. And we'll move quickly into the city administrator update.
All right, a couple quick things here. Shane Short, Sadie Krosick, and myself were in attendance at the Electric Cities of Georgia Economic Development Conference earlier last week. It was a really good conference. And I just wanted to mention that Monroe was highlighted several times throughout the event. And it looks like we're doing something right. We always have more to do, but it was impressive to see that, everybody's hard work and good policy-making decisions are paying off. And the business community is really thriving, and I think we're going in a lot of good places. So it was good to have Monroe highlighted at that statewide event. The GDOT clearing project along the interchanges here on 78 SR10, you've noticed it's stalled out the last several months. Finally got the answer from GDOT today that their contractor essentially quit, went into default on the contract. They're having to go through the whole process and do the advertisements and rebidding of all that. So within a few weeks, they said they hope that the new contractor will be in place and can start cleaning up that mess for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving to central services, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. Couple quick things. From the marketing side, we're, I think, a couple years ago? I feel like I'm standing close to y'all. There, that's better. Marketing side, a couple years ago, we did the whole free water conservation kit that we offered customers in the city, and we're going to go back and do that starting sometime this month. We'll put it out on social media, website. There'll be a newsletter issued of how they need to come in and actually pick up one of those kits that's a low-flow shower head, 3 faucet regulators, and leak tablets for the toilet. Help people on their bills a little bit if they can become more efficient. Saves us on making water, which is a little cheaper too. Ground maintenance, the April 27th cleanup that we met here at City Hall, I told you all I'd have numbers. We had, maybe 12, 15 people, I think, that showed up that morning at 9, and we actually picked up 280 pounds, just that little group, just kind of what was City Hall, downtown area.
Clarifying.
Yeah.
We had Bible Baptist Church who came in and helped that morning with us. So a mess of kids. Had a couple of older individuals. I don't know if you consider you and me and Logan as
Old? No.
those young people who are volunteering.
Stop you.
But we did have First Baptist youth, First Methodist youth, some Monroe area players that Brian Widmer took out. So don't short sell us. We had about 100 total volunteers.
Absolutely. Well, I just meant that little group. I was proud that we picked up that much.
That's pretty good.
A couple of hours. The Plaza building, police department update. We've got, we're kind of working through the design process, but I did want to tell you, I think I'd shot out an email. We've worked it out with Bank of America and the company that'll do the bid and everything, our engineering firm, to actually use our P card to pay for the entire project. So that should build us to the point that we get roughly $125,000 to $150,000 back. It should push us to that next level, kind of that next threshold of what we spend on P card. So it kind of proves that system and how good it works for us. Downtown Monroe, planners are out. We actually extended the planners from Washington all the way down to Church. And got the businesses, different facilities to agree to water those on a regular daily basis. Leadership Walton donated the black granite bench that's now in the park side where the Art Guild is. That's kind of a cool addition to that area. And other than that, Children's Park's seen about a dozen birdhouses added to it that were given to us at a pretty good discount from Wild Birds Unlimited in Athens. We worked out a little deal with them, and they're going to help us through the other parks too. And GIS project, we're about 40% complete. So we should have our entire system mapped hopefully by mid-year or sometime maybe July, August, give or take. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Just on Walton Plaza, there's some work going on that building now.
Yes, we are currently doing the roof, redoing everything there. Then they're cleaning and sealing the exterior of the building. So that'll be that first component while we're still working on this design phase. And then hopefully they are done, clean, clear out of there, and we start on the inside. And should, I don't know, maybe, we got May, June, maybe July, have the bid package and kind of share with y'all what bids came back at for the interior design and construction cost. But we will hit that budget number that was allotted for it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Sure, we'll be back to you in a minute. Thanks, Chris. Moving to committees, finance, Mr. Adcock.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, Ms. Thompson will give a financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Adcock. Before you have the finance report, as of March, as a way of gauging where we should be after this first quarter of the year, typically revenue should be at or above 25%. If you'll look, starting on page 18 of the report, general fund revenues are about 21%. That's primarily due to taxes. Of course, won't be received until closer to the end of the year. Utility fund revenues are, you'll see on the graph on page 24, those are at 29%. And solid waste revenues that are on page 30 are at 26%. Expenses should be at or below 25% for the first quarter of the year, and general fund expenses are at 22%. Utility fund expenses are at 23%, and solid waste expenses are at 15%. So every department is at or above where they should be for this time of year. And then I did some extra graphs to be included to show some detail of expenses. The general fund is on page 19 of the report for each department, and then utility fund is on page 25, and the solid waste is on page 31. It just kind of gives you a breakdown of those expenses per department as of March of this year. I was hoping to have the CAFR presented to you for this month, but I'm still awaiting information from Malden Jenkins, our auditors, to get that finished. So if I don't have it for you next Tuesday, I'll have it for you in June. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, that's all we have on the agenda this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Move into the airport, Mr. Garrett.
Chris?
Thank you. Fuel sales are the highest they've been in the last 12 months. We actually had as good a month. I think it was maybe the third best month we've had at the airport. It was the first month that we were back open from the paving expansion and rehab. And rain kind of worked out with us finally. I also attached the letter from Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2020 for the state, their allocation. They've allocated us $81,000 with a city match of $4,500 anticipated for a crack seal and remark of the runways where the numbers are changing. We're going to try to kind of work on that because I would rather see us use that on the crack seal as opposed to remarking and wait till possibly we have to repave the runway before we do that. Just because of, you can see the pictures, we had the numbers pressure washed and all the striping and everything, and that turned out well, so that should save us from having to spend money on redoing that since it essentially looks new now. And to explain in there, typically you have a big year in allocation funds for the airport, which we just received $1.3 million roughly. And then the state's given us some remaining that we came in under budget on the east side to help cover the west side, which is an ongoing process. And once we hit kind of landfill dirt, we had to start going through soil testing and things. And then with Bill's event on the big jump on May 11th, this coming Saturday, we've kind of just postponed that till we're done. But RFQ process, it will be issued on Monday because we're having to drop Barge Design Solutions, which because they employ the top third of the DOT on the aviation side, so that was a conflict of interest. And other than that, this Saturday, Bill Scott with Skydive Monroe's hosting his annual, I think, for the 8th or 9th year with the ESP program, the fundraiser for the summer camp program for the kids. So if you get a chance, stop by all means. It's usually a pretty busy event, starting at about 10 that morning. So.
How does that work? If you know, for Bill, does he takes folks up to skydive for donations?
Yeah, it's essentially you would go through the ESP program and sign up. I think it's maybe a $5,000 minimum just to jump because it's a program sponsorship, and they go up, jump. He essentially just takes group after group up all day, and they jump and they raise money. They've been over $100,000 the past 3 years, if I'm remembering correctly. And just something that he got partnered with years ago. It's good exposure for our airport. We'll have fire truck. I know they'll be out there, and be several events, rides, food, games. Si's actually there with a helicopter. He goes up with different groups of people.
Yeah, I think Rodney and Brian are both giving rides for
Yeah,
donations.
they're all, and that's the thing. Everybody's kind of pitching in, so it's a group effort.
It's like a lot of fun.
Chris, when are they saying that we may have to redo the runway?
Right now, I think, the number came back, I think we were in the 70s maybe on the testing of the asphalt the last time, and I can't remember, what was it, the PTI? Yeah, that thing, PCI. Came back at about a 70, which is good. We do the crack seal. We have one section that may or may not be closer to failing than another, but if I had to guess, I would say we're probably 4 to 5 years out, maybe.
You got an estimate on how much that gonna run?
In 4 to 5 years, not sure. I mean, you're gonna be upwards of probably $2 million, if I had to guess. That's just my estimate, just to do an overlay on the runway. And it may not, I mean, you think about it, we did the apron expansion and we were at 1.2, but you had a lot of grade buildup and new, so if you're just doing an overlay. So.
Have you seen more people tying down out there since that expansion?
Yeah, we've had a couple of larger planes, a couple of jets that have actually been out there and tied down over a couple of days. And the good news is they're able, where the tie downs are now, it gets everybody away from the fueling station, which allows for us to get bigger planes that have bigger tanks to actually be able to fuel up because you don't have planes parked right there at them. It's easier to come in, circle, turn than it is to have to pull up, figure out a way to back up.
Gotcha. Do anybody have any question for Chris?
Chris, I noticed that the maintenance was a little bit higher than normal.
Yeah, that
What
was.
did you do?
Well, that includes the flight train building that we had to redo the roof and the gutters on that we approved last month. And then it's the renewal of a maintenance contract for the, absolutely just went blank. But we renewed a maintenance contract that was just shy of $6,000. I'll text you in a minute.
Well, the good thing is that maintenance number from October, 10,600, that won't be there this year, correct?
Where are you looking?
October of 18.
Um,
Equipment maintenance. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant, that was the wrong one. $14,000 figure in June of 2018 for equipment. Building maintenance, wasn't that from redoing the
Yeah.
hangars and all that? So that'll go away this year.
yeah. So, I mean, it'll fall off.
Yeah.
What was the maintenance contract for, Beth? Because it was 2 years and that's the 1 year. I'll think of it in a minute.
Did you mention something about the runway numbers changing? Are we
Yeah,
referring?
we're currently at a 3 and a 2-1, and the way things have shifted on a diagonal, we're at a 4 and a 2-2
Really?
right now. So I'm gonna fight them that we don't have to spend $90,000 to change that right now.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah,
Any more questions?
it's for the AWAS maintenance with Visala. That's what the maintenance agreement was for.
That's all we have. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Public Works, Mr. Dickinson.
Mr. Smith, would you give us the solid waste report?
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I want to highlight the March tonnage report. Collection, it didn't change much. We collected over 1,082 tons, both commercial and residential. Our transfer station tonnage is up over 1,000 tons compared to 2018 for the month of March. We are extending the Friday hours to 5 o'clock for the month of May. Again, we're doing it month to month. And the first quarter, we generated a net revenue over $11,000 by doing that. The two projects, major projects, we do have an estimated starting date, which would be 16th of next week on the drainage. We made some contacts for the contractors for the tipping floor. We're looking for a specific contract for this project. So we do have some contact, waiting on some responses. Citywide cleanup, the numbers are collected 981 strap tires and over 90,000 pounds of trash. We had to end up pulling a couple dumpsters at a couple sites, Matthews Park and Walker Drive a little early because they got a little bit out of control. The only other thing I have, still waiting on the sweeper. The rental unit is in operation, and the vendor agreed to waive all the rental fees moving forward until we get our unit in. I did contact Columbia County. They ordered the same unit, and they were 13 months before they got there, so we're not alone. Take any questions that you might have.
When you say that got out of hand at Matthews Park, was that just basically tires?
Tires, paint, metal, you name it, we got it.
Do we think that some tire recycling store just dropped them off?
Pretty much. We did, we do have some pictures, but a lot of it wasn't residents.
That's what I figured.
Do y'all plan on doing anything with the pictures?
That'll be up to whoever want to look at them.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at those.
All right, Mr. Still?
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Just highlighting a few areas from the report from the month of March. We installed and made 18 new signs, and we're trying to stay up to date. The reason I highlight that is we're trying to stay up to date, keeping our signs clean, fresh. When they need to be replaced, we replace them throughout the town to increase visibility. Some of those new signs were some litter signs that had been requested to be put out. Other area in the report I'll highlight is in our street division. We are catching up and maintaining at the same time our right-of-ways. I will highlight a new addition to that part of the fleet. In the month of April, we completed the purchase and received our side boom mower, which was part of our CIP program. Bought it on the state contract, got a jam-up tractor, so John Deere 6105E with an Alamo side boom mower, 22-foot reach, 60-foot swivel head, that's been in operation for about a week. So it's out with the crews every day, and the areas that it's went to, it is a slow go on this initial run through because we hadn't run this type of machine for 18 months probably on a consistent basis. So it's slow going through, but once it gets through the first route, it's really going to make a difference of how our right-of-way appears, where we have some overgrowth on the back side of the right-of-ways now with trees and shrubs and tall weeds that are really not able to be maintained with a mower. This side boom mower will really make a difference in those areas, steep banks. So, like I said, it's been on the road every day for the past week. We brought it in, had a a little training session 2 weeks ago with it. Got our operator familiar with the system, our mechanics familiar with the system, and feel comfortable running it now. So it's out. If you see it, it's a big green tractor with a big yellow arm boom mower on the side of it. So it's a cool piece of equipment. It's really an upgrade from what we previously had, an open cab tractor that was a safety hazard every time it went out. But now it is, this tractor should last for a long time. It's a really nice piece. So we're very appreciative to be able to go through that purchase process like we did and have it in use now. I think that's all I wanted to highlight from the report, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
No questions. Mr. Probst, you're going to do the intersection?
Yes, sir.
presentation.
You have before you some potential changes we can do to various intersections throughout the city, and a lot of these are at fairly high traffic areas that we've seen a variety of issues, whether it be line of sight or speeding or the inability to make left turns, so on and so forth. But within your packet, each one is described with a little picture there, but I can run through the list here. The first one is East Church Street and South Madison Avenue. There's a proposal here to change the intersection format from a signalized intersection to a four-way stop sign. And you've been out there recently as traffic builds up, especially during the higher volume times. Left turns are almost impossible at many of these times, and 2 or 3 light cycles may go by before somebody can make a left turn safely. And we've actually seen a fair number of accidents there, and people are starting to take risk making those left turns. So this is a really low-cost way to improve this intersection. From what I understand, that traffic signal is also kind of entering the end of its life cycle, and those are very expensive to replace. And in the future, with the downtown green area being developed, when people try to get in and out of there, that light system is just not going to be conducive to a really high volume atmosphere. So that's one issue, if you have any discussion on this intersection.
Now, who actually did the study on this?
We didn't.
Because I've been living down there for 18 years, and I don't see a problem with that light.
We didn't pay for a full engineering study on this.
So where is this coming from then?
This is just based on staff evaluations over the past many, many months.
And who is the staff evaluation?
That would be myself and Mr. Steele, some of his staff members as well.
I've noticed a big impact there too. I mean, just driving, it's not so much South Madison that's the problem, but up and down.
It's Church Street is the primary left turn issue there. I know personally, I've just sat out there at the town green property and just watched how many cycles it takes for people to turn. So a lot of it is anecdotal, but that's why we have it here before you. I didn't really want to spend, $10,000 on an engineering study for this, which would then in turn be a really low cost four-way stop solution.
If I can speak on that, as that area develops with events, any city event that goes onto that green space, moving traffic in and out with a red light will require an officer working that intersection, just like we do with any Christmas parade, any type of detour event, to where we're putting additional traffic in that thing. If we are coming out after a concert, Friday night there was thousands of people in that area downtown in front of the courthouse. We move that to that green space. That's where those thousands of people are going to be at. It's going to be a whole lot safer for those people around those areas dealing with moving traffic if that traffic knows it's coming to a four-way stop versus a green light that they're going to be trying to get through. As well as alleviating the traffic issues after the fact. Four-way stops move congested traffic at a better rate than a red light does through the entire span of an event. So that was a lot of the theory put in to that particular intersection.
And
Plus, you'll be increasing the volume of pedestrian
That's right.
traffic once that event center's there and
So a slower traffic would be ideal versus somebody
people-
trying to get through a green light.
And we lost one life there last year, somebody trying to beat that light.
And those replacement of a traffic signal, last time I looked, which was several months ago, was for a four-way is about $140,000 versus
For
a
signs?
couple, maybe $1,000 for some stop signs.
do you think we're gonna need any, rumble strips coming like, if you're on,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, just to alert people that those four ways are there?
So that's the first one up for discussion. Of course, go home and think about these as well, and go visit the sites over the next week if you haven't already. Another one is Breedlove Drive, Alcovey Street, Shamrock Drive. This one we actually had an engineering study done on several months back to try to figure out the most feasible intersection improvement. Ideally, a roundabout would be the best solution there, but it's pretty cost prohibitive at this point. We just don't have the money for it. I think that's something we should line up in the future. Of course, that would also require moving some utilities and so on and so forth, so that price tag just kept creeping up. So there's been a number of accidents there as well. Left turns are a little bit dicey there sometimes due to line of sight. At a little bit of an angle, looking back Alcovey from Breedlove, and traffic stacks there a good bit. So this, again, is another kind of low-cost solution for this. It will also help slow traffic down on Alcovey, which you all get a lot of complaints on the speed on Alcovey as well. And I think the rumble strips will have to be a requirement here to get people's attention on Alcovey. There's already a stop at Breedlove and Shamrock. So that's number 2 on your list here.
Shamrock not a major street anyway. It's just a little roundabout from Shamrock back over to the next street.
Yeah, Shamrock is not a high volume area, but it does tie in at the four-way intersection there.
Shamrock already has a stop sign.
Yeah, it already has a stop sign. Breedlove already has a stop sign, but Alcovey does not.
Y'all plan on putting stop signs throughout the city of Monroe?
I would say, yeah, if it makes it safer, why not?
There's no doubt. I mean, RV can probably speak to the number of fender benders and actual accidents that occur there weekly.
Yeah, we go at both of those, just like you were saying at the other one as well, at Church in Madison. We've had them there and at Breedlove and Alcovey.
Do you got a report on them accident?
Oh, yeah. Everything we do is documented. We got record management that records every incident we're involved in. And dispatch has Georgia State Patrol. If there are accidents with serious injuries, we can pull those as well.
Can you let me see the ones on both intersections?
Yeah.
As far as the accidents in the last year or whatnot?
Just in the last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also encourage you too to think about it in a more proactive way of preventing future. Maybe there's been 0 accidents in one of these intersections, but because of the growth that's coming, it's a necessary change now to prevent anything from happening down the road. Not just the reactive stance.
All right, moving on, number 3, William Street, North Midland, 3-way stop from a 1-way. So at the end of Williams, there's already a stop sign. In the picture there, you can see there is a little bit of a line of sight issue. And as some of us who were out, picking up litter that Saturday, we got an earful from some of the residents along North Midland about the excessive speed down through there. So this is just another simple stop sign solution to help slow traffic a little bit and help the ingress egress in that area. Along the same lines, Edward Street and North Madison Avenue have had several citizen requests. to create a four-way stop here to, again, slow traffic and help with the ingress, egress from Edward Street. Really tough line of sight right there if you're going west on Edwards, either across or onto North Madison.
In traffic really on North Madison and South Madison I've seen increasing speed for years. I worry about safety coming out of each of those stop sign side streets. So I fully agree with that.
Another one would be Breedlove Drive, McDaniel Street. I don't know if you've noticed right there by the Presbyterian Church. If you're making a right from Breedlove onto McDaniel, there's been a number of accidents there, number one. Number two, you can't see
Line of sight.
left. There's no line of sight
Yeah, that hill is
on
right
that hill. It completely blocks you from making a safe right on red. So essentially just a sign that says no right turns on red from Breedlove to McDaniel Street.
I am supportive of that. Jackson, I have another question on that intersection.
Yes, sir.
There continues to be a significant number of people that run that red light on Breedlove. Generally from the yellow light, in other words, they're coming along when it's green and it changes and it turns red and they go through it. And other people are coming on McDaniel that see the green change for them and they're trying to come through. There's that thing about two vehicles occupying the same space at the same time. It doesn't work well. The question I have, and I don't know what, RV or you or somebody, the length of time something's on yellow, if it's longer or is it shorter, that discourages people from running the red. In other words, if you made the yellow longer or made the delay on the other side turning green longer, would that help? Or is it the other way around? I don't know.
I personally don't think it would make any difference because someone who's going to run that light is going to run it anyway. They're just trying to get through that intersection. They're going to take the risk and chance it.
Well, if you
I think
do
the delay
though,
for the green would actually.
but can you delay the green on the other side?
And
Make them
did go out
both be
there.
red for 10 seconds or something.
We've recently reset the timing of that light to extend the complete rollover. It was within state mandated numbers, but we extended it to match the rest of the lights in town, and I haven't heard any issues since then. We constantly got calls before we changed it about the light turning too quickly. So we extended that yellow time. I'm not certain if you can, I don't think you can slow up the green and manipulate the yellow from the other side. I don't think that works.
You can't do it to where it would be red both directions for, like say, 10 seconds or some period of time.
I know, I think it's on a roll. As soon as it goes from one, it goes.
I just see it continuously when I'm on McDaniel and I'm stopped at the light, and I'll see mine turn green and I'll see another car coming through it.
I'll look into that, but I'm almost certain that you can't stop the pattern.
You know how many wrecks we've had there. I mean,
It's also a great spot one day for a roundabout.
That would probably be a good candidate. And the last one on the list is Davis Street at South Broad. Perhaps a no left turn between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. from Davis Street, kind of following in the path of what we did at McDaniel Street in South Broad. That seems to work pretty well, keeps the traffic flowing there. I think this little area could benefit also because of the terrible line of sight when somebody's trying to make a left right there.
look, what about when you're going south on Broad there and turning left on the Davis? That's also a traffic issue.
We've asked GDOT to come in and at least, hash out the area so people aren't supposed to pull up and block that intersection. You're not supposed to block intersections anyway, but that's what we've requested them to do.
'Cause that's a ongoing problem.
It is, and that creates backup further in town for sure.
And we've got that same problem on Wayne and Spring. really bad right there. The overflow and into the line of, I mean, it's,
Maybe we can get the sign that says, "Don't block the box,"
yeah, really.
over there, particularly at Wayne and Spring.
Street all the time. West Spring and Wayne.
Yeah.
But it really has surprised me, the number of folks who've come forward and thanked us for making a no left turn from McDaniel onto Broad. And sorry you had to make it a legal issue rather than just a common sense issue, but that's exactly what I see here at Broad Street and Davis. You can't take a left out of there. That doesn't make any sense.
It jams up pretty badly.
My only hesitation with that change, and I think it's very necessary, but if you get to that stop sign without realizing you see the sign and your morals come into play and you do turn right, it's extremely difficult to get back going left like you needed to. So is there any way, kind of like you see those I-20, access to I-20 this way, signs like right around that downtown Atlanta area? Right there at that Davis Street, South Madison intersection, could we put some signage that might direct people down South Madison to use one of those other streets by the Country Day School to access Highway 11?
Kind of by Walker or Mill.
And maybe push half that traffic away from that intersection completely? Just think about, like, I see those signs all the time, and it's like, I want to turn left, but I know if I go up here and turn left and come back around, I can get back to where I'm going pretty.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at some alternative wayfinding.
I've never seen that really in a small town setting, but
We could almost make Davis a one-way to the stop sign at Madison.
I wouldn't be opposed to shutting the whole street down.
There's one residence right there, and they might take a little bit of an issue with one way in that. And then we need to look at the impact on some of the business owners right there at the corner as well. But
Yeah,
it's
like
worth,
Walgreens put their drug traffic puts out there.
yeah.
Pharmacy traffic.
That doesn't sound good. I mean, their pickup,
Yeah.
prescription drug practice.
Yeah, so we will study that a little bit further, but
I definitely think it's a great change if we did nothing else, but just to make it a little bit up that guest experience on the change.
noted.
All right, and then the streetscape project. Mr. Probst?
So before you is a request for the approval of Keck and Wood to perform the design engineering for up to $425,000 and the subsequent administration services contract for the upcoming TAP grant. That's the Transportation Alternative Grant. There will be some additional right-of-way acquisitions, as there has been with the North Broad or the West Spring or the South Broad projects. But essentially, this is an 80-20 grant from the state. This is the first part just for the design and engineering. Later, we will be applying for and hopefully awarded the construction piece. The state now breaks it up into two different awards. So this is just asking for that approval of Keck and Wood as our engineer for this project.
All right, that's a committee item, so we need a motion on that.
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, I call the question. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous, and that will be recommended to the full council.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson.
All we have, Mr. Mayor.
Moving to utilities, please, Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mayor. The monthly electric and telecom report, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Looking at our items of interest this month, I want to first highlight and thank you for approving that additional SEPA power that we got last year. It made a huge difference, or a large difference, in the amount of power we had to buy at peak hours during the cold weather this winter, and it's going to do the same thing for the summer, so it's really helped our overall rate structure. And I can't express that any more than I already have. It was a great idea and a great move by y'all to approve that. The construction we started on Second Street now is complete. This is for the apartment complexes that are going in the front of the mill. We have constructed all overhead all the way down Second Street, turning on Barrett, then going underground the backside around the mill to backfeed all that power to all those businesses. If you had noticed the big hole they dug out there for their stormwater retention, at one point there was a big red pipe that went through that. Well, that was our power line that was feeding Hodgepodge and all those businesses. Now that's gone, and we're feeding from the back so they can move forward with their project. Our Spring Street distribution design is complete, and we are working with GDOT on a few changes they requested for our permit. Once we have that permit in hand, we'll bring that design to you to approve. I didn't want to bring it to you and then GDOT make me make changes down the road. But just in a nutshell, that will be installing composite or ductile iron pipes in line with the new concrete poles that MEAG installed for their new 115,000 volt line. That'll get those poles a little further off the street. These poles will not have guying systems. They will not require them. And so we'll get some guy wires out of the way and just beautify that entrance into town a little bit more. We have started some vegetation controls that are a little different than we normally do. We're going to be doing some spraying on some of the projects we've already cut. We did some on Charlotte Rowell last year. We're going to do a little more this year. Just want to make you aware, most of our spraying will be done outside. Well, all of our spraying will be done outside residential areas. But we found that it's a little more cost effective once you get the brush and the stuff out of the way, spray it, and then you don't have to go back and cut it with manpower again for a while. Our fiber and our PON or passive optical network equipment is installed for Stone Creek for the first phase, waiting on our first customer. And the second one is Logan and I talked, and we wanted to come up, and there's been some talk I know amongst the council about just completely building out the fiber network to the whole city. So I've met with 2 engineering firms last week, and then I'll meet with 2 more next week, because we want to give you an educated estimate of what that would cost. Get that in your lap so you can make an educated decision on what we may want to do. So I'll meet with the 3rd one this week. We will pick or bring to you the engineering firm that we think is best suits our needs, and what we're asking them to do is take our electric maps to our downtown for the Monroe area of our communication system and give us a cost, nuts and bolts down to the customer, what it's going to cost to change that whole system to complete fiber optics. And I'll take any questions you may have.
And that would run fiber down every individual.
All 6,300 and something meters.
And then each resident would have the ability to.
Well, we would change them over.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
We're running an
automatic changeover.
We've got close to 5,000 internet devices attached to our system. We've got 6,000, I'll have to look at the number, about 6,500 electric meters. So what we're asking them to do is do a design based on our electric maps. We have maps of the whole electric system. Let's take these maps with these take points, with these meter points, and give us that estimation based on that system. I mean, I'm talking about from the head in all the way to the install, what that cost would be. And I can't make that estimation. I'm not that guy that can make that total call on that. You need somebody that's done a lot of these. The 3 we're looking at are Buyers, Vantage Point, and I cannot remember the name of the 3rd one to save my life. But all 3 came with very good resumes and have done optical systems inside Georgia in the past 3 years.
I do want to add, as a takeaway from that conference we were at for economic development, this was one of the, if not the key things that was kind of beat into everybody's head, is how important fiber is going to be for your community, whether business or residential, for the foreseeable future. So we just want to study it.
As we have more folks who are no longer technologically challenged, who run their businesses, who work who telework, fiber is going to be vital to our competitive success with other towns that fit our demographic and sociographic.
I think we would have a big head start on some big cities as far as per
We'd have a
capita where
huge
we're
start.
at. Which is awesome.
Any other questions from Mr. Thompson? The water, sewer, gas, and stormwater report, Mr. Prope's gonna take care of.
I'll take care of that, Mr. Little, thank you. Hit a couple highlights here. The ongoing projects, we've got the leak survey, continuing in business and residential areas. We've got a new gas main being installed, at a residential development on Highway 83. And then, a slew of stormwater projects, a big one on Blaine Street over by Walton Plaza all the way down to the vet clinic. We've got Tanglewood storm drain replacement, North Madison Avenue storm drain replacement, and the Heritage Ridge pond rehab, which was a CIP project. A couple updates on some projects that Hofstetter is engineering for us. The wastewater treatment plant is 25% complete at this point in the design. Still have a good ways to go. You'll see there noted the target bid date is January 2020. I think we're still going to hit that. That'll be important for us as we continue to grow. As you see some of our numbers in other reports, we're definitely growing. The Alcovey sanitary sewer project. This is another big project. It's been in the works for a while. Our target bid date is fourth quarter of this year. We're really pushing to get that done as fast as possible. That's 50% complete on the design. And then the Loganville water transmission line. It says 95% complete. It's really about 99% complete. Just a couple small things to nail down as far as meter placements and a couple parcel issues. But that one's pretty much done. We'll be ready to bid probably late this summer, if not sooner. That's all I have, Mr. Little, if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Just a comment about how great that fence looks there on Broad Street.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna discuss the purchase of the water materials for Stone Creek subdivision.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bailey to take that, as he's handled most of the purchasing aspects of this one.
This is basically just what it says it is. It's the purchase of all the meters, Itron, ERT units, the Ys to install it, the different connecting fittings and backflows and whatnot for the subdivision. We actually bid everything out, even though we are asking to stick with the Neptune meters, which is consistent throughout the system. Good understanding, that's what we've had all our training on. Their price was comparable with everybody else, and it just keeps everything matching. Doesn't force us to change any type of equipment to read anything. So this will cover everything. The only thing that on that cover sheet to correct would be instead of 250 meter wise, it'd only be 125. Just because you're going to wire off and you essentially have your water meter for your house and then a potential irrigation meter. And this would cover everything for the full build out of Stone Creek. I think the breakdown delta, the total purchase would be for $54,122.50 and consolidated pipe at $13,310 for the remaining pieces. Be glad to answer any questions.
I noticed they've got a couple, 2 or 3 houses out there now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're having ribbon cutting in a few days.
Yeah, and yeah.
Or do we have things ready to?
We do. And this will essentially just replenish what stock has been pulled just to do those couple of lots and cover everything to where this will be the pure cost of the water install for that subdivision.
Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the materials for a price of $67,432.50?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Adcock. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll recommend that to full council.
Thank you, sir.
Full cost construction fee and rate study.
I'll take that, Mr. Little, thank you. I've asked Mr. Middlebrooks to explore updating our connection fees and our rates associated with that for various water and sewer taps. It kind of got complicated several years back during the beginning of the recession when the state passed a new law changing how we go about assessing and what we can go about assessing tap fees for. And essentially, we've got some updating to do. And not just in terms of our technical language, but also in terms of what we should be charging different developers of different stripes, whether it be the commercial, industrial, residential, hotels, so on and so forth, multi-families in particular. What we don't want to do is lose money on each tap that we make. And on some projects, to be honest, that's kind of what we're doing because we're so far behind. What we're requesting is for GMC to provide this full cost and connection fee study for us. Price of $17,500. It's a not to exceed price. We hope this will kind of get us back in line to where we should be. This has not been updated in many, many years. Maybe 2007, I believe, was the last time it was looked at. So just the cost of meters itself, like you've just seen here, are going through the roof, and especially the really large ones. You purchase one of those, we're already at break even or less with just one major commercial meter. So we're just trying to get that back in line to where we should be.
Logan, this is really talking about tap fees, not water rates, is that correct?
Right. Well, if there is an associated, let's say, an ERU equivalent rate unit for like a multifamily or a hotel, that may be something that may be associated with a water rate. Build that in there. But as far as your normal water rates, no, it probably will not be unless they want to do that one as well.
Well, it seems like a good idea. I mean, these costs sometimes, when you just throw them out there, they seem high, but everything's going up, and we may not be competitive and fair to ourselves as a city and our cost,
right,
and to our customers.
Yes, sir. Essentially, we don't want to subsidize one development on the backs of the other ratepayers.
No.
Is what it comes down to.
Right. Mm-hmm. Any other questions about that? Is there a motion to approve this cost study?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Bradley, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Adcock, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. We'll recommend that to council. Thank you, Mayor. That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Thanks, everybody. Moving to public safety, Mr. Larry Bradley.
Yeah, we have a fire department report.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. For the month of March was pretty much standing on our call volume. Just word for note that we didn't have any fire loss during that month, which is a great thing. Doesn't happen too often when we go a whole month without any losses on fire. We are scheduled to start our hydrant testing and maintenance, flushing the hydrant system and the water system in the city. We're going to start that next week, and we'll be communicating that on social media. And we did finish up with all of our firefighter 2 certification. I think we went about a day where everybody was certified, and then someone left and we hired someone else on. So, but the program is there, and we'll continue to now that we've raised the bar and set that standard, we'll just continue on with that within the department. That's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? And we'll do the police department report.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Month of March was busier than the previous months. Our call volume went up close to 1,800. I think that's primarily due to the weather change. And we had our Part 1, Part 2 crimes have increased, but only less than 10%. And considering that the calls went up 1,800 or close to 1,800, I think that's pretty acceptable. We did have 97 adult arrests, 5 juvenile, and we participated in 6 different community events. Our canine officers spoke at the Rotary, and they also participated at the Carver Middle School Career Day. And we also hosted our 2 Coffee with a Cop events on 2 separate Saturdays, one at the Cotton Cafe and one at the Coffee Camper. And had a pretty good turnout from the citizens here. It was a good opportunity for citizens to get to meet our officers and make that connections there. And, again, even with the officers doing the downtown walking pretty regular, those relationships are becoming stronger every day. I actually was at the First Baptist Church the other day at Judge Sorrell's funeral, and they came up to me and asked me, said, hey, what's going on with the officers walking downtown? Is there something going on? I said, no, that's just a new thing we've implemented with walking downtown and being seen, and they were very appreciative of it. One of the things we did do in the month of March, towards the end of the month of March, was we implemented the new Joint Operations Unit. At the police department, we run 5 officers on day shift and 5 officers on night shift, and they work 12-hour shifts from 6A to 6P. This Joint Ops Unit is comprised of 4 additional officers that will work from noon to midnight. So from noon on, we'll have anywhere from 9 to 10 officers that are on the streets here in the city of Monroe. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think next month when we come in here, I'll be able to show significantly the impact that unit has made in the community out here as far as the criminal element is concerned. Another thing we just finished up was, I told you last meeting about us doing a video for Monroe Area High School on cyberbullying and texting. That thing kind of grew. It's turned into about a 23-minute long video, and it still has some editing to go on. The mayor had the privilege of being able to see part of it, but it's going to be a great educational video going into next year. The last 2 years, we've had issues at the schools with teenagers texting things that they shouldn't be saying. And just today in society, when the verbiage that's used, it's hard to see in what context it is. And if there's any kind of threatening remarks made, then we have to take extra precaution. We end up putting the school on a lockdown or a semi-lockdown, and we have to have a heavier presence of law enforcement there until we can investigate who sent the text and what was the intent behind the text. So going forward, the intent here is to educate at the beginning of the school year, show this video, set the expectations right there from the beginning, 0 tolerance on it, and probably possibly have them sign a waiver form so they understand that if they do participate in this, or if they do send something out in the school year, they've been warned up front. But again, it's not to scare them, but it's more just to educate them, because kids don't think. They don't, they're learning how to control their emotions or deal with their emotions, and sometimes they say things or do things they regrettably do so. But that's all I have. If there's any questions or any comments, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Chief Watts?
I do want to say the video is really, really well done, and I can see that not only being successful here, I can see that being picked up around the state and even around the country. It's very impressive, and it brings to mind things that I don't think any of us thinks about on a regular, everyday basis. So I appreciate you doing that. Also, I was at Relay for Life on Friday and at the concert Friday night as well, and our team was just all over the place. It was, and had a lot of real positive comments, and I just appreciate the route you're taking with our force. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
We have one item on the agenda for some out-of-state training. Chief, can you explain that one?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Yes, what this is our canine research. This is Officer G and Canine Zero. They're coming up on the year annual recertification. He'll be going back to Alabama Canine, and it'll be a week long, just recertifying the dog on its tracking, patrol, and narcotics training.
I do have one question. In the requested expense is $290.
That's just per diem. There is a additional cost. If you look down the bottom left on the purpose of the trip where it says, there's a $450, $200 for the certification and $250 for the housing. The officer and canine will be housed right actually there on site. They have their own facility there they'll be staying at.
But so the total
So
cost
that's
is your,
$450 plus $290.
okay.
I'm not a math, what is that?
740.
$740.
Any questions from anyone on that request? Then I have a motion to recommend that to the council.
I'll make a motion, we recommend this out of state training in the total of $740 to council next week.
Have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Malcolm. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. We'll recommend that to the full council next week. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Ms. Malcolm, Planning and Code.
I'll defer to, Mr. Darrell Stone.
Yes. Mr. Kelly, thank you, Ms. Malcolm, is out due to an illness, so I will attempt to highlight what the code's been involved in. And if you look at the statistics, lots of permitting and inspections have gone up. We're roughly having approximately 6 per day. We had 49 permits that were issued last month. As far as new businesses, there's 8 of them. As far as closed businesses, there were 12. As far as major ongoing projects, as you can see, Silver Queen, the walls are up. And as far as the Main Street apartments, you know, the permit's been issued for the last 6 months, but they're working on the retention component right now. So we're looking, once that gets completed, they'll start on the footers for that project as well. As far as Murphy USA on Spring Street, you can see the building has already been delivered. They said it'd be about a 30-day project, so we're expecting that to come back online either towards the end of this month or the very first of next month. So it'll be operational again. In regards to the city marshal, they've removed roughly 54 signs from the roadway. They've had 162 repair and cleanup orders and re-inspections. Primarily, most of the March ones were a lot of grass mowing issues that were cited and complaints. As the summer continues on, and if we ever get a break on rain, that might be less, but we're working towards that. We're still seeing lots of cleanup issues, et cetera. There were 2 utility tamperings and theft cases. There were 5 citation issues. If you have any additional questions in regards to that, I'll make an attempt to answer those.
Are there any questions? Thank you. I think that's all, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ross Bradley, Economic Development, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Croswick, would you mind joining us to talk about all the awesome things happening?
The image in the report is the winner of the 10th District Congressional Art Competition. This is the 3rd year that we've hosted that showcase in downtown Monroe. And I think all the winners this year are from Monroe Area High School, but this was the first place. That's a pencil drawing of her mother, by the way, not a photograph. It's really incredible, the talent we have in this community. And so she won, she'll get a trip to DC, and the families come, they see the work on display in our downtown businesses, and then the winners get downtown dollars. So it's a boost to local economy too. We had our farm to table dinner. That was a sold out event. We're still getting our final numbers, but that's most likely will have raised $9,000 to $10,000 for the farmers market, which is wonderful. And the first farmers market is this Saturday. And so 8:30 to 12:30, we'll start the farmers market season if the rain holds off for us. And it'll be a big day because it's also the first Monroe Children's Book Festival. If you want details about that festival, you can go to monroechildrensbookfestival.com. It has all the authors that'll be coming into town. Story Shop's been very successful in pulling in a lot of children's authors and young adult authors. They'll be doing panels and book signings, all kinds of events there. The Walton Center for the Arts will have a lot of events going on, including a children's book writing contest for kids to enter in. They'll judge those and they'll get prizes. In the library, will be doing puppet shows and other events. So it should be a great day downtown if weather cooperates. And then also wanted to mention this month, we'll be hosting the Georgia Municipal Association's Heart and Soul Workshop. That'll be here in Monroe on the 23rd. I'm sure you've gotten information about it as elected officials. It's a real honor to host that and do the training here. Some of you might have registered to get the training, but I'd love for any of you that can be involved if you'd like to be here in the morning and welcome everybody to our town. I'll send out details and emails, but we'll have 40 to 50 elected officials from all over the state here that'll be seeing what we've done in Monroe. We'll do a walking tour, and they'll get to just experience success that you guys have been a part of. And you can see the other events on there. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Can you tell me what the Young Game Changers presentation's about?
It's on the 9th. This will be their presentation to what the ideas that they've come up with over this full year of planning here and as teams. They'll be back again in June to meet just as their group. But then August 9th, there's a community presentation. It's open to the public. It's the afternoon. It'll be at the engine room. And then there's also a dinner, a ticketed dinner that night. So you'll get a lot more details with that. But I would love for everyone to be there for that, because that's our chance to kind of take these ideas, and hopefully there'll be things that we haven't heard of or thought of before, and really see if that would fit in our community to move forward and do some out-of-the-box things that will help us over the next many years of growth.
Eddie, when did you say that was?
August 9th.
August. Okay.
August 9th.
Hopefully they have some great funding tools too.
Yes, hopefully, and that's one of the things, is it's not just supposed to be ideas, it's supposed to be ideas and with feasibility plans and funding suggestions. So it should be a good blueprint that we can take and hopefully run with.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Crosett. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks to both of you. Moving to Parks, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you. I refer to Mr. Probst with this.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. We have our first real item, I would say, under the Parks Committee this year. This is for a passive park MOU at Athens Tech. We were approached by leadership at Athens Tech Walton campus recently about getting some assistance in kind of beautifying the old track area at Legion Field, and just helping them clean up some old defunct buildings that really need to go, that are a bit of a hazard for them, been a problem with some vagrancies and so forth. And then we got Daryl Stone to use his talent and kind of draw up what it could look like for not a lot of money, and kind of open this space back up to the public. Since the police department's going to be back out there soon, this is going to be a great complement to kind of help to kickstart revitalizing the area a little bit. And they sent us an MOU. I'm going to make one request, that we strengthen the language a little bit so that it's more of a, it outlines that it's a passive park for public day use, with the exception of when Athens Tech needs to do a special event or something like that. But that's the only change that I'm requesting we make to this MOU. I think they'll be fine with that based on the spirit of the agreement we talked about a week ago. If you have in your packet one of the appendixes here where we show some tree plantings, and then the hashed out areas are some old asphalt that's crumbled up we might take out, remove a few structures. It's really hard to see here, but there's a couple small buildings we'll take out.
What about a pickleball court?
There you go. The tennis court, we're going to study to see if it's in decent enough shape to do an overlay of a pickleball court. And Athens Tech is completely fine with this use, as long as we don't open that CDL, truck driving area, for parking. They're fine with the other parking along the street, and then even up into that lower area in the left corner of the picture to park in. I think it would be a great feature for us to do, really low cost, high impact project.
Now, the asphalt to be removed is not the track, right?
No, not the track, just some of the periphery asphalt around the field.
The track will stay like it is.
Track will stay like it is. We can easily get it sprayed. The county's going to continue to maintain the field, so nothing will really change there as far as the upkeep. So it's kind of everybody partnering together to make this a more usable, friendly environment. This may include a little bit of painting. Might need to get rid of some of the old painting that's been up from a movie shoot a while back. This will help rebrand Athens Tech as well for Monroe and make it a more attractive environment for their students as well as their own residents.
I know Wingfoot, for all their runs, they utilize that track a lot to run down there, however many laps, and run back. Be a great place for a mural too, or some fun painting.
Just from legal, I don't know if Athens Tech would be open, our suggestion would be if we could morph this into like a 1-year lease, automatic renewal provision until canceled, 90 days, something like that. An agreement to allow the public of the citizenry to use it in exchange for us doing these few things. Might tighten that up a little bit.
I think he's completely fine with that. Just we got it kind of late, so there's a little bit of fine tuning to do here over the next week. Not an issue.
Do you have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Pope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Items for discussion. Mr. Stone, looking at a public hearing variance at 257 Boulevard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This was a variance request at 257 Boulevard, which involves a non-conforming lot. Just based on the merits of the request, this was a difficult decision, but to stay with our zoning requirements and ordinances and not deviate from them, we had to recommend the denial of the request. Essentially what you have, I'll just synopsize it real quickly. You have an existing non-conforming lot that's in a R1 district, and they wanted to subdivide it. And, you know, with the R1, you got to have 100 feet. The existing lot's 95 feet, so it puts you less than 50 feet. Well, the structure that they want to put onto that lot is the historic home adjacent to the Methodist church. And that's where the merits of this case or this request is very good, because the church wants to put a playground out there in that location, and the applicant wants to go ahead and preserve the home, but the home does not meet the non-conforming lot, making it even more non-conforming. And then also it doesn't have the setback requirements on the side setbacks, which those are even tighter. And then finally, the R1 requirement is 1,600 square foot minimum, and the house is 1,400 square feet. We looked at many different options to relocate the house on that same lot in different locations, but there were property rights and ownership that the applicant could not get, so kind of kept on running into roadblocks. So at the end of the day, this is what we came up with those major encumbrances. But P&Z has went ahead and granted the variance. So that's where we're at, is the zoning and planning folks. My office, we went ahead and went with our zoning ordinances, saying it's not, it would be a denial based on meeting our standard codes. If you have any questions, I'd entertain them.
Just a comment. I know it's in my district. I looked at it, and I understand everything you just said. But I don't see a downside in doing it. I think it's a positive thing for the neighborhood, positive thing for the city to grant a variance.
And it's my understanding, planning and zoning felt exactly the same way.
That's correct. And the adjacent subdivision owners, individual homeowners there, they said there's no complaints from any of those.
And you know, that group will complain if it's not agree with us.
Did
We
Mr.
told you
Robert,
this a few years ago. And so, I mean, the fact that, and I don't mean that negatively, I just mean these people are concerned about their neighborhood.
Sure.
And so, and rightfully so. And so if it was a detriment to them, I think they would be voicing a concern because they're very much into the neighborhood. So I know next week we'll vote on this, but as I look at it today, I think it's a positive thing for the neighborhood and a positive thing for the whole community.
might I ask Mr. Robert Carter, it says that he has not come forward but are we sure that he was given notice? He doesn't live in that house now that Mr. Holder references. He's living elsewhere. And do we know if he has given his okay? Because he would be the one that it impacts the most.
I can't answer that, Ms. Malcolm.
I mean, I'm assuming everyone was sent that's protocol, that everyone was sent a notice, right?
Yes, it went through the public process. The sign was posted right there in front of the house. So if he's not aware, the onus is up on him because it was in the front yard.
Okay.
The applicant can probably speak to that a little bit more next week. I believe he has had some conversations with the property owner.
Okay.
Because I think he wanted to try to purchase some of it originally to make it fit.
Okay.
Without such tight requirements, but he can probably elaborate on that.
Okay, good deal.
And are we sure is there a guarantee that a playground is gonna actually go back in that spot? Because I know at one time they've talked about a new building, they've talked about a parking lot. What security do we have that a playground will actually be put there?
We don't have a development agreement or anything like that in place for this.
Will they have to?
This was just a statement on the record during the P&Z commission meeting.
The only concern that we're having with this decision is the house moving to the new lot. That's it. Anything that happens on those two existing lots would come back before council.
Correct. Just to echo Mr. Stone, this was going by the letter of the text of our ordinance. Did it fit? No, which is why the variance was triggered. But if you go back even further in time, it probably fit. So
Right, to 1906.
I think we're all in field development. We're encouraging this kind of thing anyway, so case study, I guess.
Yeah, and that street has some differing lot sizes, so it should be a good addition. Right. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Stone? Hearing none, are there any additional comments or questions about this evening before we adjourn?
I have one, and I meant to bring it up earlier, I forgot, but it goes back to the intersection changes. Is there any possibility of maybe putting up similar to what we have downtown, the crosswalk with the stop sign that connects Pilot Park to the other side of the road, leading to the community building, or at least that sidewalk? I know a lot of folks have tried to cross there, and I mean, if you look both ways.
I'm all in favor of that, Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, I know it's just been something I've heard about over the last 3 or 4 years, and just thought it'd be a good time.
On the Church Street side or the High School Avenue side?
The Church Street side. Just crossing Church Street, something that has, something that indicates, hey, kids, people are gonna be crossing here. Because I've noticed, I mean, we take our girls there all the time, and people are crossing the street constantly.
Well, we used to have one of those signs out in the middle of the street, and I guess the tractor trailers ran over it and destroyed it. And as I was telling Chief Watts today, I personally counted a half a dozen of them on that street today. So we could put one of those back up. They're just going to run over it until we get those trucks off of that street.
Maybe a nice, 11-foot sign over the road.
We need something, because you're right. Families go up and down those sidewalks and across that street all the time, folks. Pushing little kids and strollers, and sooner or later, we're going to have a pedestrian have a bad encounter if we don't do some of these things. So I fully support what you're talking about.
Do we have any other comments or questions? And we'll add that to the record. So, hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
One by Mr. Ross Bradley and a second by Ms. Lee Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Thank you, everybody, for your input tonight.